So here's some examples. I went ahead and pre-made up an entire page of articles that are on here. I've got everything laid out. First of all, is it readable? I mean, the text is on there. It's in rectangles. It works, right? What's wrong with it, however?
All the headlines are the same size.
All the headlines are exactly the same size. Anything else? It's very boring, yeah. Very, very dull type layout. It reads well, and there's, nothing wrong with that, but it's just too boring. So let's change up the headlines and see how it looks just by changing the size of the text. Now, how does it look? You definitely know what's the dominant photo, or excuse me, the dominant article that's on there. Remember, if you do make your headlines bigger, you've got to remove words. You need to be able to edit that. And just for sake, I'll edit it really, really quick that way. So that's just by adding a little bit of difference in the size of the headlines. Big ones at the top, they generally get smaller as they move down the page. Let's see what else we can do. So how did I change up this one? What makes this one different? Bastard measure. So I've got up here, I've got 6 columns. Here I've got 4 columns, 3 and 2 columns. Here's the thing about bastard measure. So you're doing it to emphasize an area. You don't want to do it too much. Too much emphasis has no emphasis, right? How many of y'all watched The Simpsons? Or watched it growing up, maybe? Yeah. There was an episode of The Simpsons where Homer got to design his own car. And he was talking to the designers and he said, you know those little balls that they put on the antenna of cars so that you can find it in a parking lot? Those should be on all the cars. The joke is if they're on all the cars, then it doesn't work out. Same way for this one. Ha ha ha. Emphasis, if all of them have different measures to it, you're not going to emphasize one article over the other ones. But you can see how just adding a little bit of different measure or different column widths to these does add a little bit more visual interest to the area we're working with. Okay, so let's keep moving on. Right now, everything's nice and rectangular, just stacked on top of each other. Another great way of adding visual interest is by changing up. You've got some horizontal, some vertical types of layouts. And this is what I mean by having your eye move around. So no longer am I just moving from top to bottom. This forces me, this gives me a reason to move from side to side. So I've got one vertical off to the side. I've got this one that's taking up the rest of the area. Different measure inside of there. Different measure down to the side for this one. Hey, check out the size of my font up here. So what did we say about fonts that should be at the top? Article sizes at the top.
Larger ones need to be at the top.
Larger ones need to be at the top. But I got this one nice and small. Is that okay? You tell me.
I mean, I feel like it needs to be different from the one beside it, otherwise they're going to read as the same one.
Bingo. Very, very good. You've got that butting head. And also, it's in a single column. If I had text that big and having to be on one column, I could barely fit one word on there. That'd be an awfully hard article to headline, just the one word, 2 letters to fill it up. So yeah, you can break that rule. If you've got it in one column, no butting heads, it's obviously got a little bit of text off to the side. Here's another thing to consider when breaking your text up with vertical columns and horizontal columns. If I'm reading this, forget about the headlines. Does it look like this column kind of runs in with this one? Just side by side? There's not too much of a break. Now down here I don't have that problem. These are nice wide 2 columns area. And so I can obviously understand that this one's a different article. If you've got 2 of them that are about the same or exactly the same, you may want to add some sort of rule or line or something along this edge. I'm going to grab my line tool, draw a line, goes down, and we'll make it go down that far. We'll just place that over there. We'll make it bigger so we can see it. So adding that little bit of a line adds a little more break between one and the other. Cool? That's one reason why you would do that. Everything else tends to work out. Here's another different way. So I can lay things out. Biggest one off to this side. I've got different articles. In this case, 1 article, 2 columns here, then 2 column, 2 sets of articles down here as well. I'm breaking up the area, large and small, different sizes. I could change typeface for one of them. So if I really wanted to emphasize that one, instead of myriad, we could use minion, bold. And so now that's adding a little bit more emphasis. I could do the same for both of these. Instead of minion bold, we'll do bold italic. That adds a little bit extra for this one. If you're looking at these, does it look like there's kind of 3 different sections to it? You know, you've got a top, a middle, and a bottom. If I wanted to emphasize one even further, this is where boxing an area comes into. So I'm going to box off this particular article. To do that, just like it sounds, I'm going to grab my shape tool, rectangle tool. By the way, I'm just using the regular rectangle tool, not using the frame tool or the text or the type tool. Regular rectangle will do this. And I'm going to draw it off the width of my columns. We'll do that right there. And I do need to send it to the back. I've got it on top of everything right now. Control, open bracket. Hey, it's behind everything. How come I can't see it? What's up with that? Why am I still not seeing my text, even though this is behind my text?
It's not all the way back.
It's all the way back. Shift Command bracket, send it to the back. Wrap on, text wrap. I've got text wrap turned on. That's because, remember, my objects, all my presets were set to turn on. So I'm going to turn it off. There it is right there. Another thing, I noticed my text column didn't go all the way to the edge of my margins. So I've got a box now that goes around that area. My box is still the width of the column to take up. I don't want to change up my grid. But when I do that, what's my next problem? What do you see that doesn't jive? Runs into the words. Look how close they are. There's no area, no breathing space between, especially down here at the bottom. You can't even read that. So what I need to do is I need to add a little bit of space on the inside of the area. Hey, when we did text wrap, if you add space on the outside of text wrap, what was that called? Outset? Y'all remember outset? If you add text on or space on the outside, what do you think it's called when you add area on the inside?
Inset.
Inset. We're going to add some inset to it. Okay, so you may want to take notes on this because I guarantee I'm going to hit somebody on their knuckles for doing this. To add inset to an area, don't do this. Don't do it. Don't do what I'm about to do. Y'all will check this out. See how I've got it selected? I'm going to bring in this area. I'm just going to readjust the size of my text box. Do not do that. Don't do it. Don't adjust the size of your text box. Keep your text box the exact same size. What do you not need to do? Don't adjust the size. This is a best practices method. Instead, I'm going to undo what I did. Keep it the width of your column. This is because if you need to change something, well, you got a lot of work to do. We're going to add some inset to my text box. To do this, we can find it under Object, Text Frame Options. Command B is your keyboard shortcut. Here's our Inset Spacing. And then I've got Preview turned on, I can adjust that and check out what's happening. You see the little extra space inside of there? This way it automatically adds exactly the amount that I want. We'll do 1/8 of an inch. We'll say OK. Now I've got inset running around it. The reason why you don't want to adjust the text box is because now it does it for me. It doesn't matter what size I make it. Even if I have to move this around, it's automatically going to give me that 1/8 of an inch inset around my text box. And now you know. Now you know. Let's do the same thing for our headline. Object, Text Frame Options, give it 1/8 of an inch inset from there. If I back out, doesn't that kind of just pop off the page now? It's got a box around it. It's got a little extra white space from there. It's got other articles that are running around it necessary. If I wanted to, I could probably get away with adding, a rule between 2 different lines. Not necessary in all cases. Let's bump that down. There we go. And everything works out really, really well. So do you see how these rules add a lot of emphasis to your area? Whenever you lay out your text, don't make it dull and drab. Just because it's on there doesn't mean people are going to read it. Add a little bit hierarchy, change up and emphasize different areas, and eventually things will come together. Now the only thing that that's required on your exercises, I'm not going to go over it today, are news briefs. Your book does cover them. I'll pick them up the first thing next class. Let me pause what we got. For news briefs,